Welcome everyone. On cue, my dogs have started barking. They love doing this when I do a podcast. But today I am really excited to introduce you to Renton, who's from Pottery for the Planet. It's a bit of a mouthful. I'm sorry about that. Welcome, Renton.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Renton, the first question I like to ask people is if you were at a barbecue, someone said, "Oh, g'day, Renton, how you going?" Which is how we talk in Australia. We do have some overseas listeners. How would you explain what it is you do?
Well, thinking of it from a barbecue conversation context, we'll keep it fairly short. I'm a potter. So first and foremost, that's my background. And I'm actually a second generation potter. So I was born in central Queensland, a place called near Yeppoon, on the central Queensland coast. And I was born with into a young family, a couple of hippies who had moved to the rainforest, bought cheap property and had set up a pottery there. They'd pursued their dream of sort of living somewhat out of the system, I guess you could say. And great spot to grow up. And so I was immersed in pottery from a young age. And like a lot of kids, I was not particularly interested in what my parents were doing. Being dragged around on holidays looking at potteries around the countryside. And so I took off overseas after school. And it wasn't until I came back that I sort of reviewed my thoughts on their lifestyle, and I guess had a little bit more perspective and appreciation for the effort they'd put in to creating such a unique lifestyle for themselves. And at that point, I was 22, and I looked at it with fresh eyes and thought, hey, this is actually a pretty good way to spend your days. And so I jumped on a wheel, started a traineeship, and spent a number of years working under my father and other staff at their pottery, learning the trade.
Wow, that's amazing. It's not often that you meet a second generation potter, not Harry Potter, a potter.
Yeah.
So tell us about when you decided to start your own business, Pottery for the Planet. It's you make the most beautiful cups and travel cups. They're stunning. I'm going to buy one for my husband because he's got this thing about his coffee cup and he keeps breaking them. We had this tiny little cup that we bought in Japan one year that was handmade, and he broke that and he almost cried. He was so sad. So I'm going to buy him one of yours because I love them. But you told me before that you do this with your partner. When did you decide to embark on your own entrepreneurial journey, and tell us from the start what it was like?
Well, so I did a number of years as a trainee in my folks' pottery. As a production potter, generally you're on a piece rate. So that in itself sort of pushes you to become quick. Because it takes a while before you can actually live off your work in terms of the amount you can make a day. So I think I did 5 years in their pottery, and then I stepped out on my own, still in the area in central Queensland, and so I set up my own studio, got my first kilns, and continued to make what I had been making, which was a full homewares range of pottery. And at that point, the reusables weren't really on the scene yet. So, I was making things for the house, for the home. And through a series of life events, my partner Claire and I decided to move to the Sunshine Coast, where we are now, to Noosa, another beautiful part of Australia. And at that point, we were sort of looking for new opportunities in life. And Claire had been working as a barista in a cafe, and she was on the forefront of awareness in terms of the waste that cafes create. and in particular with coffee cups. And so she began saying to me, maybe you should think outside your homewares range, and maybe there's a way to get some silicone lids and tackle this problem of single-use waste. Being a stubborn male, I took a little while to come around. I sort of had the view that no, I don't do that. I'm an artist, and and so it wasn't until Claire actually sourced the silicone lids. She was determined, and the silicone lids arrived. And a friend of mine, Stephen Roberts, who's still working for us at Pottery For the Planet, came in for a short stint, and we made our first run of cups. So that was in 2015.
Wow.
We actually, Claire, my partner, and I have both come from a sort of activism background. Claire was actually based in Tassie for a long while. She was campaigning on the sticks. When they were trying to protect old growth forests down in the south of Hobart and sticks. So she'd come from that sort of environmental activism. I'd been involved in more trying to stop coal ports and that sort of related heavy industry in central Queensland along the coastlines. And I guess we just shifted sideways in our commitments to the environment, and also saw an opportunity to tie doing good in with making a living, doing something that we love. So we melded together lots of our values into one, and that was how Pottery For the Planet was born. So that kicked off. We did a small run of cups. We took them to Woodford Folk Festival that's held here on the Sunshine Coast every Christmas. Sold out in the first day. Realised that actually I probably should have listened to Claire earlier and made the cups earlier. So we got Woodford out of the way, went back to the studio in the start of 2016, got prepared. We developed more so a product line. The first run of cups was fairly loose. And so as we had an actual clear structured product offering for potential clients, and we got busy making cups, and the universe lined everything up, or we lined everything up with what the universe had planned. And we just finished that first run of cups, set up a website when ABC ran the War on Waste series, the first War on Waste series. So that was in about March 2016. We then, I'm pretty sure that was the timeline. Anyway, at that point, we were ready to go. And at that point, there was only us and one of our competitors, the brand Keep Cup, who were making a different alternative in their with their plastic cups. So we were the only two players in that market at that time. And Craig Rucastle, who produced the War on Waste series, filled a tram. Most people actually remember this because it was a real light bulb moment for a lot of people, where he filled a tram full of single-use coffee cups in Melbourne and drove around Melbourne for the day with a megaphone, calling out Melbourne, saying, "Hey, Melbourne, look at what you produce every day through your coffee habits." And even for us, that War on Waste series was a really significant tipping point in our journey of awareness and environmental consciousness, where people who already would have considered themselves to be living a conscious existence went, hang on, we're only just scratching the surface, and there is so much more we can be doing. And so that also trickled through to businesses like cafes and that was when literally our phone started ringing. We had a huge wait list of cafes wanting to stock our products, and it just took off from there. And we went from, that's where our journey and growth began. So we had a huge waiting list. We couldn't keep up with stock, And then, so over the next 12 months, we scaled up the volume of our capacity, production capacity, increased our kilns, increased our staff, got admin, got marketing, and ran with it. And so there was essentially a 3-year hang on for the ride. And,
wow, that is so cool. Keep talking. I can hear my dog. I've got a puppy. I can hear her chewing something. Just keep talking.
Yeah. Okay. So we rode that wave through that immense growth period. We trained a team of people to do what we were doing, and in the end, it got to a point where we simply couldn't produce enough product for the demand. And so at that point, we began investigating other options, and we connected with a small family run pottery in Vietnam, and we expanded some of our production to Vietnam, which has been a really rewarding experience as well. So we're now at a point where we have some of our production in Vietnam, and then our Australian production as well, which gives us that's part of the reason why we have such a diverse range of colours that we can offer, because we've got multiple production facilities using different materials, different glaze materials, different clays, and that's sort of that's a brief introduction to our range.
Amazing. So I remember that series when it came out, and I remember being horrified because I thought that like many people, I think, I thought that coffee cups were recyclable, like the single-use ones, that they could be recycled. But I found out that they can't be recycled. They just go into the normal bin, the normal waste. Yeah, because I think that a lot of people think, oh yeah, those actual cups, they're recyclable, so it's not that bad. But when I saw that, I was just like, holy shit, that's like the amount of coffee cups, and like it is alarming. It is alarming. So I love that.
You know, Emily, the alarming thing is that the amount of greenwash that's come about, the product hasn't changed, but the greenwash that's come about as a result of it, because in actual essence, they are recyclable. If you have a very specific industrial recycling process just for those products to strip out the plastics and recycle them. And now we're seeing come through the compostable claim, which is fine, except for of the 520 council jurisdictions in Australia, we've still only got something like 80 councils or less that are set up for commercial scale composting. So although they might be providing a compostable product, there's no flow on from the point of consumption, i.e. getting a coffee shop, drink your coffee, what do you do with it? There's no system there. So for that sort of claim of creating a composting product to be ultimately true, we need a solution on the post-consumer end to be able to do that.
100%, 100%. And so just for people who are listening, what does greenwashing mean? What does that mean?
Well, greenwashing is where a company puts out information, or be it with the product or through media advertising, that tells people the information that they want to know. So, and there's lots of companies doing it. It's generally companies that aren't too concerned with their integrity, and generally marketing to the demographic of the public that aren't really looking beyond what they're being told. So I think that we could.
Sorry, go.
Yeah, you know, I think we all know, we'd all be aware of which demographics within that population those people are. That's probably the majority.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's telling people, oh, these items are recyclable, or they're green, they're conscious choices that you're making, but not really, because I think that what Australians don't realise is that when it comes to recycling, we're pretty shit, actually. And we used to export a lot of our recycling to China, and then they said we're not taking it anymore. So can you tell people what that actually means for your average household that is still creating a whole bunch of plastics? Where is that now going? What happens to that?
Well, look, I mean, I don't claim to be an expert on the recycling situation. Our business is more so focused on reusable, which is that's the solution. You know, we need to create a true circular economy. We need to skip the recycling because that just uses energy and industrial processes that use energy to recycle. Some products can be recycled easily, which lend themselves to that purpose. For example, aluminium is much more easily recyclable than other products. But ultimately, the answer to the challenge we face is for us to be reusing, and that goes from a reusable coffee cup to takeaway containers. Veggie bags, taking mesh veggie bags to the supermarket, getting rid of plastic bags. The list goes on and on of opportunities where, as individuals, we can make a change and start to make a difference. Ultimately, the change will come from legislation, and it's great to see some of our state governments around Australia in recent weeks have just upped the ante on their commitment to eradicate single-use plastics. Western Australia has been the first state to jump in, and by the end of the year they'll have eradicated almost all single-use plastics on the list of baddies. South Australia is also doing an excellent job, and so hopefully they provide a bit of incentive for the other states to step it up as well.
Absolutely, and that kind of leads very nicely into the next thing that I wanted to ask you about. So we were talking before we jumped onto the live about your new kind of venture, and that is creating one of the first solar-powered kilns is it the world or Australia? So tell us about what you're doing.
The world. I'd like to, but I can't claim the world. I'm not sure about that one, but certainly in Australia. So, I mean, let's start at the beginning. This has been a long time dream of mine for probably since I began making pottery. My folks actually they started where they moved to is beside a large pine plantation, and so they sort of had these thoughts in the 70s about moving to a sustainable fuel source for their kilns. And in a way they did that. They moved to a pine forest, and they were using offcuts of industrial waste, the ends of the pine trees that were that they could use to fire their kilns. Wood firing became too labour intensive to be really viable as an industrial fuel source or a commercial model. It's very much a luxury at this point, and so I'd sort of had that example set to me, and I'd always been interested in solar power. So it had been, I'd had, like I say, it was a long time vision of mine, but it's taken a while for technology to get to a point at which you can actually run a energy hungry bit of equipment like a kiln, electric kiln. So thankfully, it's now reached a point, and late last year we set up and installed a large solar system. We moved to a new warehouse in Noosa, or a new studio, which is quite a big facility, and we've got just under 100 panels on the roof. So it's a industrial system. And then we invested in a kiln that was like a state-of-the-art kiln that could reach the temperatures we wanted to reach, and we've now got it up and running. So we're actually able to offer a 100% carbon neutral product as a solar-fired reusable coffee cup. So that's a brief overview of that project, and it makes me so happy to talk about it, because as a business, we try to set the benchmark and push the boundaries to sort of, one, demonstrate what's possible, but also just inspire other businesses to to lead the way. Like we're at a point where so many things within our systems are being outdated. Technology is there to replace so many processes within operating a business, and so it's just a matter of businesses, I guess, valuing it enough to invest money in it. That's probably the big thing. So,
I love it. That's so exciting. It's so exciting. So are all of the cups still handmade? Like, is there or
so we've still got potters here. So I might just step back a little bit and tell you where we're at as a business, because that's a fairly exciting journey for people as well. So for late 2015, I was working in a tiny little, it was actually an old horse stables that we'd rented off a farmer on someone's farm out the back of the Sunshine Coast. I was working there on my own. So doing everything from ordering raw materials, making the pots, glazing, firing, marketing, the whole process. Fast forward now, so 5 and a bit years on, we've now got 18 staff across the business. We've got 2 studios. We've got a studio here in Noosa, which is our main headquarters. We've got another studio in just north of Margaret River in Western Australia, in a place called Dunsborough. And then we've got a distribution small warehouse in Auckland that we distribute to our New Zealand customer base from there. So that's the sort of, we've grown into a bit of a monster, which, you know, we have nothing but gratitude for that journey, but it hasn't been without its sort of challenges, you know, physically, emotionally. It's been pretty big. To your question of how our current business model, we've got a production team in Noosa. So we've got a number of potters here. We have people making pots. We have people on the wheel still. We have people glazing and loading. We have a couple of apprentices that sort of assist us in those processes and do a great job. They love it. And then we've got our dispatch team who pack orders up, and obviously our marketing administration team. So in terms of how we make the cups, we've got the traditional wheel thrown method, which is great for creating unique products, things that have the maker's mark on them, throwing rings they're called, where you have the ripples up the side of the cup from where your finger is. And we also use molds. So for what we do, with the cups, there's very little tolerance in terms of size. So one thing that we learned early on is the importance of not having leaky cups. So our quality control in the beginning was probably a little bit loose, and it just created constant headaches for us, because we'd send out a beautiful looking product, and then you get a photo from someone and they'd have a nice dress on their way to work, and they've got a big coffee stain down the front of their shirt. So we had to work on 2 things. We had to work on our quality control in terms of products being sent out, and we had to work on our production quality. Or I guess precision in our production. So we incorporated the use of molds into our processes, because once you've got your master molds made, it's then a very uniform product that will fit a lid every time. And that was a huge step for us in terms of eliminating waste and eliminating seconds from our process.
Yeah. Amazing. So it sounds like you've had quite a significant journey. What you said that there's been some turmoil along the way. What's been the hardest thing you think, going from being, you know, a mum and a partnership, a relationship, working out of a farm shed, to actually operating like a fully fledged business with employees, a production site, a warehouse? What's been the biggest challenge that you've faced?
I guess the biggest challenge, like most people in business would say, is just finding balance. You know, so but prior to the Pottery For the Planet taking off, I sort of would have what someone says an idyllic lifestyle, surfing before work, get into work whenever you wanted. Maybe if the surf was good, knocking off early, going for a surf. That was all well and good. Happiness levels were high. Financial levels were low. So,
Yeah.
there was a choice, and there is a choice for all of us as we proceed through life, I feel, where you have to go for it. You have to actually make that decision that money is now important, and I'm willing to put a few things aside and change the balance of how the balance looks, and put energy into things that earn money. So, and I don't think that's a bad thing. That's the society we live in. That's that's how our system's set up. If you want to have things like a home and a house and whatever it is that you aspire to have, at some point in your life, we all have to knuckle down and get stuck in whatever we're doing. For us, certainly moving from being self-employed to having a staff of 18 has brought challenges, in terms of we've had to train ourselves to be managers, and you bring people in and they ask you, they're looking for guidance and instruction from you, which at some point you don't actually have the answer, and so you need to somehow find the answer, think it through. We've always taken the approach to be honest when you don't know. It's like, well, I don't know. Let's work as a team, and let's make a plan. So that's certainly probably one of the dynamics that's been a real challenge. And then just finding working as a partnership with your partner also provides challenges, and that's certainly something that we've faced along the way. And I would say we have struggled with maintaining a work-life balance, because it's just so easy to go home at the end of the day and suddenly you'll be having dinner and you'll click and you'll go, hang on, this has just been a business meeting. We've just taken what should be a nice, relaxing time where you're connected, where you're finding out about each other's day, and that, as you do in a normal relationship, and suddenly you're talking about what should be spoken about in an actual organised business meeting during your day. And I don't think there's any couple who work in business who could say that they haven't fallen into that trap at some point.
Absolutely.
From there, you need to highlight and what's causing that, and then try and implement ways of not doing it, which is easier said than done. Sometimes there's things that just have to be chatted about, because at 8 a.m. in the morning when all the staff arrive, they need an answer and a plan. So I think that's probably balancing out relationship and personal relationship and business has been big for us. And I guess the other thing is just also staying true to one's purpose through growth, because it's math. There's been opportunities where there's been things, opportunities presented to us, which from a financial value perspective, financial opportunity, they're massive. That you can run with it, but you have to ask yourself, at what cost? So is this a cost to my personal health? Is this a cost to my values? Are we maintaining the ethics of the business? Because it's critical that you get that right and don't go down that path, because people who have supported you along your journey pick that up. They'll say, hang on, these guys were claiming this 12 months ago, and suddenly now you are doing this, and people care. That's I think that's something we could touch on now, is just how quickly society and generations coming through, their mindset is changing, and they want to see business. They want to support businesses that are doing good, that are actually practicing what they preach, and they're willing to avoid businesses that don't have integrity.
I love that. That is a great message, because I think that your values, your personal values, your business values should be the compass by which you make business decisions. And I think a lot of businesses claim to do that, but do they really do that? So I love that. It's so refreshing to hear that's the way that you do business, and it's about doing good and being true to your purpose. And I think that will resonate really, really well with our listeners, because it's what it's all about. And I think that young people are definitely searching for ways to live on purpose, but also do business that is aligned to their passion and their purpose. And I would say that that's what's going to sustain you through the dark and lonely hours of running your own business. And if you're not passionate about it and it's not aligned with your purpose, you're going to find it very difficult. So if you had one, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I think just if I can make one more point on that, because we've actually got a real life example of the shift that's happening. And it's very interesting because my folks are baby boomers, and perfect example of how attitudes have changed. Like I have great conversations with my folks about life and the world, and the fairly philosophical, in-depth conversations about the state of the planet. But one thing, as an lived example of our business of a shift that's happening, is the reason we set up our West Australian operation. So we started out with our Sunshine Coast everything based out of Noosa, and we started selling to customers in Western Australia. And over the course of a couple of years, we saw that shift, and suddenly our customers there were saying, look, we're not willing to send product across the country anymore. We need something that's localized. We need something from Western Australia, because this shipping things from the East Coast doesn't align with our values. And so that was the catalyst for us investing in a second operation in Western Australia. So that is an example that it's happening. Like, that's the good news story in my mind. Even though it's been a lot of work to duplicate what we're doing in Noosa in Western Australia, it was a business decision, and it's paid off because we've got a fantastic and loyal customer base in Western Australia now, localized within that region. So I would say for people setting up businesses, the change is here. Like, the change is happening. It's happening fast. And if you bury your head in the sand and ignore the consumers, whether it's B2B, business to business, or business to customer direct, that they're demanding that you do the best you can.
That's it. That you should listen to your customers and give them what they want, right? It's not rocket science, but I think that a lot of businesses forget that. It's like, people's attitudes and values are changing, but it feels like certain industries are being left behind. Like the big boys, banks, mining.
Yeah. That's right. And I mean, the beauty of being a small business is that capacity and ability to pivot quickly. So you see a shift like that, you change. Or if you, as a bigger corporation with a publicly listed company, say shareholders, well, that change like that is slow going. And when it's a purely profit focused model, it comes down to numbers, and it's so diluted that the individual's ethical morals are left behind.
100%. So how did you, just one last question, how did you cope during COVID? Did you see an increase or a decrease in business? What was that like for you? Because like last year was just the most bizarre year I've experienced in my lifetime. I don't know what it was like for you, but what was it
Look,
like?
we last year, the last 12 months for us has been really difficult. There has been silver linings, so one has to approach life like that. Out of sort of difficult times comes change, and often you can steer that change in positive directions. But when COVID hit, we had built a business model. We had 500 plus cafes around Australia that we were stocking with our products, and over the course of the previous years, we had become somewhat exposed, or very exposed in this situation, because we were selling one product to one outlet. So we were selling reusable coffee cups to cafes, and we literally shut down overnight because all of our outlets shut during the first nationwide shutdown. And then flowing on from that initial shutdown, most state governments banned the use of single-use products. So, reusable products. So basically, we lost our customers. They shut their businesses, and then when they reopened, we weren't allowed to use our products. So that just ground Pottery for the Planet to a halt. A key point to make, which is so important, and I hadn't really thought it through until last year, is the power of manufacturing in Australia. So we had skilled workers, skilled potters who could make anything. And I'd actually been working in the background of Pottery for the Planet and the cups that we were focused on. I'd actually been working on another homewares range similar to that, which I've been making for the first 15 years of my career as a potter. And I just hadn't ever found the time to launch this tableware range. So we basically stopped making cups instantly, pivoted, started making tableware. And so over those first few unknown topsy-turvy months of COVID, we had everybody in production busy making new products. And as fate would have it, the shift that happened last year in terms of people becoming focused inward on their homes, on their, people weren't traveling, so they had a bit of spare money to redecorate their kitchens. It just played into our favour. We launched a massive tableware range, and that got us through. So you could say our ability to pivot by having localised manufacturing saved us as a business last year. And now we've got that tableware range within our broader reusables range. Probably even you could say our reusables range is up on the side of our large homewares range. So, that was the silver lining for us. It gave us this window of time to develop new products, get our stock base together, update our marketing and online presence, and then we've sort of tried to climb our way out of the COVID year that has been with that model. So that's where we are now. You could say we're still trading below pre-COVID levels, but it continues to increase, and as the things level out, So that was our COVID story, and one has to grow out of those sort of challenges, don't they?
Definitely, 100%. Well, that's a great place to finish up. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And if people want to check you out, you're obviously on Instagram. I've got your handle there, Pottery for the Planet.
So I would recommend, if anyone's interested, we've made a great video of the solar journey. We've just released that that's a new project. Like we've just released that content this week. And so if people are interested in finding out more about that, it's all on our website, potteryfortheplanet.com. We've got a great community there that people can get involved in and become a part of the change themselves.
Cool. I love it. That's awesome. Awesome story. awesome products. So make sure you check out Pottery for the Planet. And Renton, enjoy the Sunshine Coast. I'm hoping it's sunny up there. I'm in Tassie and it's a bit kind of overcast and it's raining, but you get that.
Yeah, I won't tell you what it's like here.
Oh, okay. What temperature is it? Just so we can all be jealous.
24 today, sunny.
Ooh,
No
wow.
wind.
Living the dream, mate. Living the dream. Well done. Thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you, Emily. It's a pleasure being part of what you do. And good on you for your work, showcasing the change makers. That's what it's about. We've got to get in there.
Absolutely. So we'll share all of your handles when we publish the audio. But thanks for everybody for listening and watching. And if you like what we do, make sure to leave us a review.